Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to our events. I'm Emily Malara, PhD student at Hacettepe University, and I have the honor of moderating today's conference. Before starting, I want to thank once again all those who made this event possible. Casa Italia, Italian Dostluk Derneği, SNIS, and Franklin University. You can follow the program of Casa Italian's events on Casa Italia website, Facebook, Instagram pages, and you can read all the news in the Giornalino. Before starting, I would like to introduce our guest, very good friend and collaborator of Casa Italia, Giorgio Annas. He's a postdoctoral fellow at Franklin University in Switzerland, in Lugano, graduated with a Master of Arts in Languages and Civilization of Asia and Mediterranean Africa from Ca' Foscari University in Venice. Between 2017 and 2021, he was a researcher at the European University Institute in Fiesole, where under the supervisor of Lucy Riel and Peter Judson. His work focused on the cultural aspect of diplomatic history of the Italian-Ottoman relation during the long 19th century. In June 2021, he successfully defended his dissertation entitled The Mediterranean Mirror, Italo-Ottoman Relation in an Age of Transition, 1856-1871. Among his publications are the article The Birth of Ottoman Colonial Space, the Libyan Cases, published in 2016, Connecting the Two Seas, Negotiation in International Modus Vivendi, Italy and Ottoman Diplomacy in the Suez Red Sea Area, and the book Reports of Cesare Durando, Italian Venice Consul in Sarajevo, published in 2020. Since November 2021, he has worked as principal investigator of a two-year project entitled Pandemics and Borders. Pandemics as driver toward modern borders and international collaboration in 19th century Mediterranean and Southeastern European periphery, funded by Swiss Network for International Studies. Please, Giorgio, prego.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. As already anticipated, my colleague, Emily Consuelo Malara. My name is Giorgio Annas, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Franklin University, Switzerland in Lugano. I work as principal investigator of a two-year project entitled Pandemics and Borders, funded by the Swiss Network for International Studies. First of all, I would like to thank Casa Italia Ankara and Dr. Emily Malara for inviting me, and all of you for deciding to participate. Thank you very much. Until very recently, borders seems to become more and more a thing of the past, particularly in Western and Central Europe. The ongoing COVID-19 crisis, with its various attempts for containment and control, have reminded us that there is no such a thing as irreversible progress. Developed between the winter of 2020 and the summer of 2021, in collaboration with Professor Pica and Professor Bucher, the project entitled Pandemics and Borders was accepted by the Swiss Network for International Studies. Based at Franklin University, Switzerland in Lugano, this project aims to explore the interconnection between epidemiological containment measures and the development of modern state and international state systems, as exemplified in the development of borders in Southeastern Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean. To reach this goal, we brought together collaborators from different countries around the world, promoting a multilingual, international, and multidisciplinary research path. Since the very beginning, this project sought to investigate the interplay of epidemics and the development of borders in the Mediterranean and Southeastern Europe in an epidemiologically long 19th century, understood here as the period from the last major outbreak of bubonic plague in mainland Europe in 1712 to the development of modern bacteriology in the early 20th century. Since the devastations of the Black Plague in the mid-14th century, the limitations of both theological explanations as well as the medical wisdom of the time were evident. Particularly, trade connections between the Italian peninsula, the Levant, and the Eastern Mediterranean, with their lucrative access to the rest of the East, appear to be a source of lethal dangers, thus leading to different policies of containment while maintaining the possibility of ongoing economic exchange. As long as the existence of micropathogens remained unknown, and even the very nature of contagion unclear, if not even disputed, all policies remained blunt and tentative. What slowly showed to work against the forces of nature were measures of quarantine, health passports, and control posts along trade routes, rendering either rather fuzzy concepts of borders, concrete and tangible. Therefore, the project explores the development of these political attempts to contain nature and how they shaped the perception of borders. From the 18th century onwards, border controls and interstate collaboration allowed to reduce the threat of bubonic plague, and the fact that Marseille, 1712, was the last major outbreak in Europe showed the success of sanitary control of trade connections in the Mediterranean, as well as of sanitary border regimes such as between the Habsburg and Ottoman empires, or between the Duchy of Milan and the Swiss Confederation. With the devastating advent of cholera in the 1830s, these measures came under scrutiny again and remained a vital concern in an age of state building and globalization, even more so as the development of railways and steamships made travel and migration so much easier. Within the 19th century, Europe of the railway age, political boundaries might be less controlled, but sanitary concerns remained as little as ever. Only the development of bacteriology by Pasteur and Koch would set the fight against epidemics on a new, much more solid foundation. Before that, nature remained a never-ending source of threats to the benefits of trade-based prosperity, with only the mechanisms of surveillance and control that the emerging modern state had as tools with the potential to contain. From a historiographical perspective, the project posits itself as the intersection between two burgeoning fields of research, which have so far been largely separate: border studies and history of medicine and epidemics. For many decades, the prevalent paradigm on the development of borders has been the notion that borders as line to be controlled by the state are a product only of the 19th century. Prior to that, states were made up rather of a sum of feudal rights and jurisdictions, personal relationships based on networks of vassalage and homage. Borders between the major states in Europe were supposedly defined in a non-territorial way. More recent scholarship has questioned both the linearity of this model as well as its timeline. Several historians underscored how, in the early modern age, the definition of border areas is better suited to describe inter-imperial and interstate buffer zones than the idea of limes or borderline. Simultaneously, while the development of quarantine measures from the later 14th century onwards led to the development of proper sanitary port facilities throughout the Mediterranean, this has been hardly seen in the context of state building. Only few historians have linked the development of modern health care techniques with the parallel development of the modern state. Moreover, in the last decades, several historians of the Ottoman Empire underscored the centrality of the Ottoman model in demonstrating how the high level of sanitary know-how developed served as public health measures and also allowed for new impulses in administrative technologies around the shores of the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. In particular, the work of Pescialii showed how the successful development of a permanent sanitary cordon that stabilized the Habsburg and Ottoman borders and allowed for more direct control over imperial boundaries with quarantines and lazarettos has recently found close scholarly attention, demonstrating the connection between modern sanitary and political borders. While indeed material boundary markers and cartography began playing a decisive role from the 18th century onwards, these delineations could play a role already earlier, and other ways of representing and perceiving borders maintained an important role way into the modern era. In fact, as emerged from the works of historians such as Lo Blush and others, in the Ottoman case, the relevance of the fight against contagious disease by setting up boundaries and borders is a main cornerstone for their attempts towards developing the empire into a modern state. The adoption of sanitary measures against plague and cholera, such as the application of germ theory and bacteriology and the creation of the Ottoman Quarantine Board, were the results of the collaboration between foreign diplomats, experts, and Ottoman pashas. As efficaciously pointed out by Law, Ottoman's objective was not simply the eradication of plague and other global disease, but also the degree of international legitimation that Constantinople received by taking primary responsibility for the sanitary policy. Finally, notwithstanding the centrality of the Ottoman case for this research, we'll try to draw parallels of this state-building process also through the cases of the Swiss-Lombard early modern border. In this way, it will be possible to identify a consistent global trend regarding the relevance of the role played by epidemics in the development of state boundaries. About the methodology, it is important to underscore that the selected archives have provided us with a remarkable number of documents that will allow us to pursue the topic for many years. Among these sources, the diplomatic documents certainly played a central role. Nevertheless, this project is focused on a great number of different sources in several languages, such as French, Bosnian, German, Italian, and, of course, Ottoman Turkish. The linguistic variety allows us to adopt a comparative approach on different sources and languages used by characters involved in diplomatic and sanitary conferences on an international and local level, and a global perspective to map the development of international sanitary situation in the Eastern Mediterranean by a diachronic point of view. Although these documents are mainly characterized by a top-down approach, being characterized by an elitist perspective, essentially, which of course limits our point of view to that of the global elites of the various countries, in their analysis of specific cases, they are generally able to offer interesting insights into the reaction of urban and rural populations. In fact, if the documents of the European consuls in Egypt and the Balkans are able to provide us with a picture of the reaction of the Ottoman populations, albeit mediated by an opportunist perspective, the same documents produced by Ottoman diplomats in Europe provide an interesting opportunity to balance this perspective. The documents analyzed are mainly dispatches, reports, memorandums, and minutes made by doctors, consuls, and diplomats reporting the description of epidemic crises and scenarios. For example, the use of not strictly official sources, such as the memoirs of the Swiss doctor Joseph Ketschet, provides us an interesting insight into the precautions taken by the imperial administration in Ottoman Bosnia. In the effort to further limit the inequality linked to the top-down characterization of diplomatic sources, we included in the project also digital sources such as journals, newspapers, not excluding scientific sources such as medical atlases and official sanitary reports, or such as the French Annuaire and Ottoman Salname, with their indications to contain the disease, such as those kept in the Isanveri database. Finally, visual sources are used as well, like European and Ottoman medical manuals and atlases, such as the Sahih Musée Atlaseux, illustrated by the Ottoman doctor and artist Hikmet Hamdi Bey. These sources help us to understand the fundamental role played by pandemics in creating the image of boundaries, borders, and the other, allowing for better insights into how, in the modern age, the image of the pandemic's disease among the international public was developed and influenced ideas and also stereotypes. From the very beginning, it was decided to focus the project on the western coast of the Balkans, in particular, the Ottoman province of Bosnia-Herzegovina and the Principality of Montenegro. In fact, in the last years, the interest of historians for the Bosnian-Herzegovinian and the Montenegrin cases increased due to the high quality of the documents and the peculiarity of these border societies in the 19th century. This choice was also motivated by the documents produced by the Italian consular agent, Cesare Durando, from whose reports the entire idea of the project originated. His synthetic but effective descriptions of the Sanitary Commission of Sarajevo against cholera in 1866 and of the Commission for the Delimitation of Montenegro between 1879 and 1883 confirmed the view of the change in global health between the 1860s and 1870s. In particular, the 1850s and 1860s represented a period of intense international collaboration between European and non-European powers with, for example, a flourishing of sanitary conferences against cholera regarding the adoption of sanitary measures and the parallel development of conferences and commissions regarding the creation of new national boundaries. Therefore, our team decided to focus the analysis on the period between the 1860s and the 1870s in the Western Balkan area, and secondly, on the Third International Sanitary Conference of 1866 in Constantinople. The reading of the volume containing the minutes of the International Sanitary Conference of Constantinople of 1866 persuaded me to focus my attention on the transformation of the international sanitary system from the collaborative one of the 1860s to the nationalist imperialist system of the 1870s. As hypothesized in a first moment in two articles published with the Italian peer-reviewed journals Fare Storia and Rime, the consular documents, such as those produced in Sarajevo and Cettinie by Cesare Durando and these minutes, demonstrates the existence of this transformation process between the 1860s and 1870s. The documents of the Sanitary and Delimitation Conferences, united with those produced by French, Italian, and also Austrian consuls and sanitary commissions in the Mediterranean, provide a first but solid step in identifying and describing a global phenomenon that took place during the 19th century and how the administration of sanitary measures influenced the development of national borders. Finally, thanks to the information and the map about the spread of cholera in the Mediterranean, now we are able to start working on a virtual map of the Mediterranean quarantine system in the 1860s. How it is proceeding, our project? Time immediately appeared as a crucial factor in the development of our project, and the amount of the material to be carefully analyzed will require many years of work. For this reason, we decided to focus our attention on the powers which played a pivotal role in the area and were therefore the most interested powers: the Ottoman Empire, Austria-Hungary, France, and Italy. We mainly focused our attention on unpublished documents from the archives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from several countries. In particular, the Başbakanlık Osmanlı Arşivi of Istanbul in Turkey, the Historical Diplomatic Archive of the Foreign Ministry in Rome, the State Archive of Turin, the State Archive of Genoa, the Archive Diplomatique of Nantes in France, the Schweizerische Bundesarchiv of Bern in Switzerland, the Archive of the Red Cross in Geneva, as you can see, the Österreichische Staatsarchiv of Vienna in Austria, the Archive Bosnia-Herzegovina of Sarajevo in Bosnia-Herzegovina. This geographical selection gave us also the possibility to select consular points of observation in the Western Balkans, from where the cholera epidemic was observed and described with accuracy by the consuls of the most interested powers. For this reason, we selected the following Balkan centers: Constantinople, Bucharest, Belgrade, Sarajevo, Scutari, and Dubrovnik. This selection process produced first outcomes. Essentially, the topic of the 2 years project was clearly identified. First results were published in Italian peer-reviewed journals such as Rime, Fare Storia, and even on international peer-reviewed journals. Archives keeping the documents produced in strategic points of observations were selected and visited. The general idea for the definition of a virtual map is gradually taking shape in schedule. In conclusion, I would like to thank, first of all, the members of our advisory boards that you can easily find here in this list: Alexander Shunka, Catherine Cox, Davide Rodogno, Giulia Bay, Anna Yunis, Ida Maria Fusco, Ina Kerner, Jeffrey Lewitt, Jordi Tehel, Liliana Markovic, Maurus Rainkowski, Nadia Bernasconi, Salvatore Speziale, Vera Costantini, Yavuz Köse. I would like also to thank the members of my team, Professor Markus Pica and Professor Bernd Bucher, for their commitment to this project. I would like also to thank the Swiss Network for International Studies for funding this project, making it possible. And also, last but not least, Franklin University, Switzerland, for deciding to host this project. Thank you very much for your attention, and now I'm ready to answer to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giorgio, and congratulations on your project, and we look forward to reading it. I'd like to ask the first question. An event of significant importance for Italy and Ottoman Empire is the Crimean War. I'm actually kind of obsessed about Crimean War. So I would like to know if during the war, the cholera made many victims, was actually the first and main problems. So I would like to know if were there any changes in the border system against pandemics since that experiences, since what the troop experiences during the Crimean War? Thank you.
Sorry, can I ask you to reformulate in a more synthetic way? Sorry, I lose the point. Sorry.
Don't worry, I'm sorry. Like after the Crimean War, like after the Paris conference,
Yes.
Were there any changes? Was changes in the border system against pandemics? Like what they learned from Crimean War experiences? They learned something? Was something changed or nothing?
Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. Yes, our research is mainly focused on the period immediately after the Crimean War. But of course, the Crimean War was one of the major international conflicts during the 19th century. So I analyzed several documents. And I can say that during the Crimean War, the Ottoman Empire, but not only the Ottoman Empire, but also the powers involved in this huge global conflict, how can I say, decided, first of all, learned how to administrate epidemic situation in a war context, supporting themselves and also creating special lazarettos, trying to isolate soldiers or to limit the spread of cholera that during the conflict represented a huge problem for the armies involved, Russians, French, British, and even Ottoman armies. At the same time, I can say that after the conflict, the Ottomans increased their own quarantine system. It's the Ottoman case, as we said, is really interesting, probably because it's one of the few examples of early intercontinental quarantine system. And with the Crimean conflict, the importance and the consequent epidemic, its importance increased, and the Ottomans strengthen their international system to control it, spreading these structures to prevent epidemics in the Red Sea, in the Black Sea, and in the rest of the Mediterranean. In fact, there is a really interesting document that I found with a list of the names of the main quarantines in the Ottoman Empire from the Hijaz until more or less to the Black Sea and Odessa, and including also European quarantines that permitted me to map this quarantine system, discovering how much it was complex. It's true that during the International Sanitary Conference of 1866, several international observers consider it not enough developed, but it's also true that the Ottomans were the bulwark of Europe in front of the epidemics coming from India, from Asia, and that their system was probably the first well-structured example of quarantine system. So maybe it wasn't perfect, because we saw even after the Crimean War, there was a new huge epidemic in 1865 that arrived from India through Asia and arrived in Europe. But what the Ottomans created, even thanks to the support of European powers, was a miracle, a really incredible example. The problem, as underscored by other observers, was that the new means of transport, like battleships, steamships, and that helped pilgrims to arrive to Asia, increased the risk of epidemics, because as wrote by Dr. Fowell, that was the responsible of Ottoman Sanitary Board in Constantinople and one of the main supporters of Ottoman sanitary system during the conference. He considered the new means of transport the real threat for European sanitary situation, not the Ottomans or others, but new technologies risked to compromise European sanitary situation. This is really interesting. So thank you very much for your question.
Thank you to you, Giorgio, and congratulations again. So
thank you.
I guess please arrive at the end. Let me check. Okay. So I guess it's time to say goodbye. And I want to thank again our guests. Thank you for your very interesting presentation to your project. We hope to see you soon in person next time. Thank you to our audience, and I would like to invite you once again to follow all the evening program on the Casa Italia website, Facebook, and Instagram. A big thank to Giorgio, and see you soon.
Thank you very much, and see you again. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.